Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome to the first HangarReady of 2021. We're back in business. Sorry we had to push this a week, but real life reached up and grabbed me last weekend, and because of that, we had to postpone the show. But with me tonight are my great co-hosts, Jolly. How you doing this evening, Jolly?
2021, a lot like 2020.
Sounds so excited about that. Also with us tonight is Turing Atmos. How you doing?
Doing fine.
And
Glad
then
you
we
guys could be here.
have good. And then we have Callie Josh. Hey Josh, how you doing?
I'm good. I hope everyone else is.
Great. And then finally, last but not least, Numidius. How you doing this evening,
hey.
Numidius?
Doing good, man.
Good. So we've got a big show tonight. It's going to go a little long. I have a sinking suspicion because we got a lot of really cool topics. But the first one is kind of near and dear to the heart of my beautiful bride and the producer of HangarReady. Go ahead and wave at everybody. Yeah, they can barely see you. There's not much light over on you there anymore. But Jacqueline did a quick review of a new type of head tracking technology. And we're going to play that video really quick and kind of talk about, what we think about this. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that all of us, and Joni, you could put us on the 5-way. I think all of us use TrackIR. Is there anyone here that doesn't use head tracking?
I think I've been using it for about 7 years.
Oh, so Turin's the only one that is not using head tracking.
Yeah.
So, yes, I remember when you got it. I was the one that introduced you to TrackIR back in the day.
My wife and I were just talking about that. It was actually a Christmas gift from my mother-in-law. And so maybe I should remind her because it's a great gift.
Mm-hmm. So Joni's going to run this really quick, and I'm just going to talk through it. She really did all the hard work here, and you probably need to mute that.
Hey, Joni here with HangarReady.
You got to hit the little mute button there. Oh, yep, wrong thing. She messed up. She's going to have to change screens real quick and get us back to the right screen.
Live shows.
Live shows. Here we go. So she's going to show this while we talk a little bit. Sorry that we don't have the picture-in-picture. Head tracking changed everything for me, Cole Hunter says. Yes, it definitely is a big thing. And honey, you can flip back and forth between us and just go to that every now and again, particularly when we are on the cool stuff. But this is a new type of head tracking technology. It's expensive. It's a lot more expensive than the TrackIR, but it tracks your head and your eyes and nothing else. Now, for all of us except for Callie and Josh, there is some issue with glasses a little bit. It is not perfect with glasses. At least it isn't for me. But for my wife, who doesn't wear glasses, it works absolutely fabulous. And it allows you to do some stuff that, you just cannot do with any other kind of head tracking technology. So I thought we'd take a few minutes to just she's going to get to the part that's actually interesting, which is watching the Star Citizen part. But what do you guys think about having a head tracking technology that doesn't require you to mount anything to your headset?
Well, lighten the load of my head for one, that'd be nice.
And you don't have to worry about charging it every
Don't
week.
worry about charging it. Don't worry about stuff like that. Don't worry about wires as much. The only thing my concern with the Tobii is the eye movement. It's a matter of I have a very large. I have a 49-inch 4K TV with a secondary screen, and my eyes can bounce around a little bit, and I'm kind of concerned about what that'll happen. You can. That's right. I've heard that
You gotta move your slider up so people can.
So
hear
you can turn off, I think, just the eyes if you want to.
You can. I verified that. Now the other thing comes into play is also been told there's some lag compared to TrackIR when you're moving your head around. Joni, you've had experience with it. I haven't. Is that true or not?
Well, I haven't had any experience with the TrackIR, but yeah, there's a little bit of lag going left and right with your head. So I'll have to see with the TrackIR.
My big curiosity is one of the tough things with TrackIR is you turn your head and your eyes want to turn with your head, right? So you have to get used to turning your head to the right maybe, and then turning your eyes back to, or turning your head left and turning your eyes to the right. And if this let me like turn my eyes and not have to, do this weird thing where I'm turning, I'd be interested in it. I'm so used to it now with Track IR. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I would like it if it felt more natural. I think that would be a little more immersive maybe.
So, Turn, what are your thoughts on head tracking? Since you're a virgin to this.
Well, my problem is that I'm so used to moving my eyes around. I have a second screen, and my second screen is way over here, like a 90 degrees that way. I've never really used Track IR or head tracking, so if it's something that I can just turn my eyes, that will work well with the glasses I wear, because there's no way I could play without having my glasses on. Absolutely no way. I'd be willing to give it a shot. That's why I was watching the video earlier. It looked really easy to install. That's a number one thing for me.
It is
Really
really
easy,
easy to
really
install.
easy to install. It looked like it went through a pretty simple calibration. And the good thing about it is that with the partnership that CIG has with Tobii, you're reasonably assured that it's probably going to work in the game. And I guess you enable it for other things if you needed it too, and you can.
Yep.
It's not like something that's going to be on all the time, right?
Correct. You can turn it on and off just like you
Okay.
can Track IR.
Yeah. Well, I do know that after playing for a little while, having the ability to fly like you would normally fly an aircraft, look in the direction that you want to look, and have the screen turn that way, it would be beneficial.
Well,
You may want to turn it off while you're running, because it is a bit disorienting. Also, if you're streaming and you have to look at a lot of different screens, you might not want that either.
So can you enable it for certain actions, or you just have
Yes.
a hot button that
you can
flip
turn it
on and
off for like running, and you can turn it on for the ship.
In
Is that done
the Star
through a
Citizen
hotkey,
settings.
or you set it that way?
Well, you could do it. You could either have an on-off hotkey in the software, or you can configure it in Star Citizen so that it doesn't work FPS, but it does when you're in the ship. So
Okay.
there's a couple ways to skin that cat, which is the same thing. Yeah, the same thing as Track IR. There's a number of different ways to skin that cat with Track IR as well. Cole Hunter asks, does it come with a pause button like the Track IR? Yes, you can set up a hotkey to pause in Track, or to pause it like Track IR, and there's also a reset hotkey that you can set up.
And for Cole, to clarify, when you use Track IR, if I turn my head, what I'm looking at on the screen is though I looked left. But if you turn your head this way and you keep your eyes turned that way, you can't see the screen. So you literally have to turn your head one way and then your eyes back to the screen. It's just a little bit goofy to get used to.
So Josh,
it's not bad, though.
All you're doing is just turning your head by maintaining your eyes in the center.
Yes.
With Track IR versus the Tobii, where you're actually just moving your eyes and not your head.
Well, you move your head. There's a slider that tells how much eye input versus how much head input on there. And so if you set the slider 100% head input, it ignores the eyes. Joni was in the video is running about 85 or 90% head movement. So it's almost entirely head movement versus eye movement.
So it ends up being like the Track IR.
It's different. No, it's a perfect example of that is you can glance down at your instrument panel on like a Pisces and then glance up without moving your head. And and you can see that there. It's much more natural, like you and I would scan the cockpit of a vehicle or the cockpit of an aircraft with our eyes. If you're sitting there flying your Cessna, you don't move your head down to glance at your instruments. You just glance down at the instruments and then glance back up. And it works really well for that if you're not wearing Coke bottle glasses like I have. And so in Track IR, when you're flying F-16s or spaceships, you have to glance your head down and then glance your head back to the center to look at your instruments. And that can be a little annoying at times.
Yeah.
And, but you get used to it. This was more natural when I sat down and played with it a little bit personally. So I went and got one after Joni got one. So
The
it was Joni's
situation,
Christmas present.
the situational awareness from head tracking is amazing. I mean, if you're,
Yeah.
like you said, need to make a quick glance, or if you need to look out your cockpit to, orient yourself or identify something, I mean, the first time I used it, I knew I could never go back. It'll spoil you for life.
Yeah. At the end of the day, head tracking is a requirement in my book for any kind of sim. If you don't have it, you don't know what you're missing. This is more expensive. It's significantly. It's a good $80 or so more expensive than a Track IR 5. But it just the whole not having to worry about extra wires, mounting them to your headset and all that jazz is a miracle. And especially if you don't have glasses, this, I wouldn't even hesitate. If you do have glasses, I'd probably get one and try it out before I committed to it to see if it can track your eyes well. It could track mine a little bit, but not super great. I mostly had to move my head around, but that's fine. I'm used to it in Track IR. So
Now I have a kind of a wide screen that's curved.
Yep.
You think it might?
it's
pose
working
problems,
fine
or
on a 40. It's working fine on a 49-inch monitor for Joni.
Yeah, their site, I saw an advertisement on their site where it specifically addressed curved screens, and it has a flexible mount or something on the bottom for it as
Yeah,
well.
she was
So
showing that in the video.
Yeah, it has
yeah,
a
that's
different
where,
mount.
yeah.
It's cool.
So yeah, Frack, again, if you don't have Coke bottle glasses, it is really good. But it's if you have Coke bottle glasses, it's mostly a head turner, but it's okay. It's still really good at that. And you don't have to mount a battery and the little clip thing like Jolly and Nom have on their headsets right now to your headset. But okay, well, guys, the big thing that we wanted to talk about today is that I don't know if most of you have noticed, but we're releasing Star Citizen videos on HangarReady for the last couple of months. So do us a favor, go to youtube.hangarready.com. That'll take you to our YouTube page and subscribe. Hit the little bell icon too. And that way, when we upload videos kind of going over some of this tech in more detail, you guys can check those videos out. So I think Turing would agree. Some of them have been decent.
They've been all decent. What are you talking about? I did not say that any of them were undecent or indecent. Indecent. I guess that would be it.
Okay. Moving on to segment number 2. Joshua, why don't you tell us about your segment?
So I think, for a lot of people, Track IR head tracking is a pretty obvious one. Something that some people may not consider is why you'd want to use a joystick or a HOTAS when you're flying. And I know we've talked about this a little bit, but I think today we're going to get a little bit more specific and give some pretty detailed reasons that you may want to consider. I'm going to start, though, with a story. And this story goes back actually about 7-8 years now. I started flying Arma or just kind of any cooperative game because I like teamwork and I wanted to do something fun and, just kind of was a good distraction from normal daily stress. And I got into a group and started working with Jay and some other folks as a air asset. And they'd be communicating with me, but I would not be immediately communicating back with them. And the problem was I had my push to talk set up for our VoIP program on my keyboard, and I was trying to fly with my hands on the throttle and stick. So I wasn't taking advantage of all of the capabilities that you can do with the joystick. And it was just one of those moments where you realize when you're flying on your own or you're doing your own sort of program, which I had done before this, then you start working with a group, there becomes different requirements and you start understanding why a HOTAS was designed the way it was and how you can maximize it. So in essence, we're going to take all the experience I've learned in the last 7-8 years doing those kinds of things and going into the profiles that I've posted. And Joni's going to post a link for both of them. They've been posted on Spectrum. There is both a Thrustmaster T16000 and the
links to chat.
Thrustmaster HOTAS Warthog. They've been up in Spectrum. One of them's been up for a week. The other one was just posted today. So I hope people can look at those. You can look at the design here, and it's a systems-based approach that we're going to talk about. And one of the first things I want to get into is Jay has some requirements that he insists on for a design or for being able to fly and move, shoot, communicate in a way that's going to let you be effective. So I'm going to let Jay talk about that before we move on.
Well, I think the key thing there, and I want to reiterate, you don't understand how frustrating it was playing Armo with Josh before he figured out how to put a PTT on his HOTAS. We would routinely scream at him in the radios to do something, and then he would just ignore us and not answer and confirm that he heard us. And it generally stressed us out a great deal to the point that we'd start shooting at him sometimes. But I have 3 rules.
We're still married.
We're still married, yes. So I have 3 rules that I was taught, and I, what a lot of guys don't know is there was a excuse me, there was a virtual fighter wing that I was a part of. They had a very good training course there, and one of the guys that was my primary instructor was also an instructor for the U.S. Navy, and actually was an instructor pilot teaching carrier landing, the portion that teaches carrier landings. And so, I got a lot of really good training, and he really kind of gave me this philosophy. It's really simple. It's, there's 3 steps to it. Step number 1 is from the instant you enter combat until the instant you leave combat, you have to have control of all of your flight controls simultaneously. Thank you, Mushroom Tiger, for the follow. You've got to be able to not only yaw, pitch, and roll, but you also, in our environment, need to be able to strafe and do all of those things at the exact same instant. Number 2 is, while doing number 1, you need to be able to also access all of your combat systems. You need to be able to lock weapons, fire missiles, shoot guns, target things in the radar and all of that jazz. And then finally, number 3 is that while doing number 1 and doing number 2, for some odd reason, when you start shooting at people, they don't like to sit still. They try to get out of the way of the bullets you're firing at them. And so you need some ability to be able to visually track targets to continue to stay on them off axes, i.e. track IR, Toby, some type of mouse mouse control or something on your joystick that allows you to look. What we found was that if you took 2 pilots of the same skill and you had one pilot that wasn't following any of the rules and one pilot that was, the pilot that was would see about an 85% kill rate against the pilot that wasn't. So every time you take, you're not doing those 3 things, puts you at this really great disadvantage. It doesn't mean that you can't overcome it with sheer skill, but it means that somebody that has the same level of skill as you is going to beat you a lot of the time versus very few times for you. And that's kind of my philosophy. And I think, Jolly, you would agree that that's a very similar philosophy from the Air Force perspective as well for flying combat aircraft.
For real life, yes. But I will say not everything in real life carries over to a computer game.
Completely agree. But it's a good rule of thumb.
Oh, yeah.
So there are my 3 rules, Josh, now that I have thrown those out there.
Well, and I think those things, at least for me, when I have a systems-oriented design and, I feel like when I'm using a joystick, I can access more things quickly. And because you're using a lot of 4-way hat switches, those hat switches are assigned to a specific type of system. So for offensive combat, for defensive combat, for communications, whatever. And when you do that, it really helps for me with time compression and task saturation. Again, if you're flying by yourself or with a couple of people, it's not always going to hit so hard, but you're trying to communicate with guys on the ground. You're trying to protect yourself. You've got other assets you're trying to not collide with. And so things can add up really quick, especially if you start getting close to the ground or into combat. And, as more and more things require your attention, the simpler something is, the more systems oriented it's been, the more you can do Jay's things, and the more you can help fight that sort of curve of information that's coming at you and be ahead of it. And that, I think, helps with situational awareness, with comfort. And when I couldn't communicate, I know for me, even back in armor, it was frustrating. And I'm trying to think about all the things I got to do, take my hand off, try to reach over, touch a key. And it's just one more thought I had in my head. So all this stuff just makes it simpler and easier for me personally. So I don't know if anyone else has experienced that at all, where they've had some frustrations using a mouse and keyboard where they couldn't do what they wanted to do. Nobody?
It does. Yeah, I
Um,
mean, go ahead.
I don't think I would ever do this game with a mouse and keyboard. I just can't see it. I started really my simulations on Elite Dangerous, and Elite Dangerous is one of those games that is very keybind oriented, and I bought my HOTAS setup for that and got used to using it and would never go back. Star Citizen, I think it's pretty much to me the same way, although I do know people, we fly with them all the time, that do mouse and keyboard. They fly mainly big ships, big slower ships. You can do that effectively, I believe, and I think you could probably do fighters effectively too if you have the practice and have the skill. For me personally, I could never be able to do that. I don't think I can adjust. I know I can't adjust, me personally, the throttle, the speed, get the fine tuning that you need without having the HOTAS and throttle set up.
Well, interestingly enough, one of our pilots who does a lot of the org ops, he recently had an issue with his throttle, and he uses the Warthog, so he's using one of my profiles. And so he had to fly the last org op that we do with, 40 or 50 people, and he couldn't use the profile. He had to use his mouse. And we were discussing it today because this is a good chance to get a perspective of, going the other way, because I would never do it unless I was forced. And he says, I can do almost everything, but I can't do it as well, and I don't enjoy it as much, right? So, we're talking about a sort of a bell curve of ability. And like most bell curves, most people in the center are probably going to benefit from a HOTAS that's, designed well and set up right. And there's going to be outliers who can probably do miracles with a mouse and keyboard. But for that granular precision, and not having this all on, all off mentality, I think it makes a huge difference. Even just being able to land or pick a landing spot when you're off of a landing pad, I feel like I have a lot more control, and I feel like the muscle memory kind of things kick in. And again, I can start thinking about what I'm doing as opposed to worry about how I'm doing it. So for me, that's a very big thing for myself.
Yeah, and where I've been reluctant is taking it to that next level, Josh, which is what your profiles are doing. It's going from having one button do one task, which is what Turin has, because Turin's a simple dude. So one button, one task, and I still have to use my keyboard for certain things. It's going to that next level, which is using that mod button to then use another key to do another function. So that will be my next challenge, and
Yeah.
you'll get me there, but it'll take a while.
So for anyone who doesn't know, every button on my profile does two things. There's the primary state, then there's a modifier that you hold down. And when you hold the modifier down, pushing the same button again does a second function. So this way, every four-way hat switch actually gives you 8 different things you can do. So you really can increase the number of things. And with as much mud as Star Citizen's throwing against the wall because they're not systems oriented, they just keep adding an ever increasing number of buttons. It certainly helps. And it makes it nicer so that you can really get into different systems. And I even adapted this one for burst size changes for the countermeasures. I'm not sure how necessary that is, but we're going to try it out, at least as an experiment on this version of the profile.
Yeah, I mean, as the king of mod states, using SATOC and Logitech joysticks with multiple modes, I don't know how anyone does it without that. The truth is that once you get, it's really easy to get used to shift states or mod states.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more immersive to me. Like I get lost in some moment and feel like I'm actually flying. I don't think I'd be possible using a mouse and keyboard. Not for me.
No, the mouse and keyboard. I mean, the HOTAS setup is more intuitive. I mean, you do feel like you're actually operating the spacecraft, aircraft, whatever you want to call it, the way you're supposed to. I think my hang up has been when I went through trying to use the target software the first time around. For whatever reason, I either didn't set it up correctly or I wasn't using it correctly. It just redid all my keybinds, and I was very rage quit frustrated that I would that I had to do that. So I think if what you've got out there, Josh, is a very good first step for people like me who can look at it, and try to follow along and set it up. So um, maybe I'll do it. I'll just have to see.
Well, I did make for both the T16,000 and the Warthog. I did make installation videos. I can't say that they are the most
Right.
exciting things you've ever listened to, but as my wife pointed out, she said they're relatively clear and I get to the point and help walk you through. I mean, I've also made an installation guide that's like 14 pages long, because Star Citizen isn't making it easy to do some of these things, but the videos help as well to get that in there. And then there's a design concept video that kind of covers both. So I'm hoping that helps, to see, people use it more, but it's a little bit technical and it's a little bit of a pain, but once you get used to it a couple times, it's pretty quick.
Nom, any thoughts on HOTAS profiles and whether you like them or hate them?
I'm all on board with the HOTAS. I have not yet gotten used to the idea of doing a mod state thing. I've messed with that in the past. It's just something I can't get used to. I got pretty much all the controls on my X56 in use. I've gotten muscle memory down pretty good for those. Got it where I like it. I don't have a particular need, but I don't get big into the combat aspects of it though. So I don't have
That's
a
true.
particular need for the mod states. It, uh, but yeah, it's like I'm all on board with that. I mean, it's a matter of the learning curve. You can get somebody in the game quick using mouse and keyboard, quicker than you could if they're having to use a HOTAS.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
but you hit a ceiling of what you can, for most people anyway. I think you hit a ceiling of what you're capable of with a mouse and keyboard. Whereas there's a lot more potential when you're using a HOTAS, and you do feel like you have a lot more control. Just being able to have that analog rather than just on off, having the analog control for strafing when you're landing or making fine movements over an area.
Throttle up,
It's
throttle down.
invaluable, and track IR as well.
So you can look at things.
Right, situational awareness, and that's the thing is most of the time. One of the reasons I didn't really buy into track IR until about a year or so ago is most of the time I hear track IR, I'm thinking about it from a combat point of view, but I use
It's
it more
not.
for mining than anything really right now. It's great for being able to look around, do a ping, and you're able to quickly glance around and see where that box is you picked up, and see where that blue
Instead
box
of having
is.
to constantly do crazy Ivans.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I see a
that
ping.
Prospector does not like to turn on a dime.
I see a ping. Let's start a right-hand turn and turn 290 degrees until I get to it.
Mhm.
Jolly, what are your thoughts on HOTAS profiles before we move on? I know this is a subject we've covered a little bit, but
Yeah,
Josh
my
has
main
done a
point
pretty good
is,
job building some.
I cannot play a flight simulator game without a HOTAS, period. You
Yeah.
can't play DCS with it. You can't even do Microsoft Flight Sim unless you have a HOTAS itself. Star Citizen is not a flight simulator.
That's true.
And so you can play a keyboard. Well, no, you can't play keyboard and mouse. If you have a standard 5-button mouse and a keyboard, you're in for one hell of a lot of trouble. If you have a multi-button mouse and a keypad, programmable keypad, you can do okay with it, no problems. But I would say, and we've said this before, you said it yourself, Jay, you fly whatever you're most comfortable with, where that may
Yep.
be. And Turn brings up some good points about memorizing, especially the modifiers. Now I've got a double one. I got to memorize what does what. That holds true. I will also point out, especially the 16,000, a lot of those hats, it's not very clear. Am I going up or am I going left? There's not a good break point in those things at all. Maybe the Warthog's a lot better, but the 16,000 is not. The other thing to keep in mind is a lot of the functions you really don't need to have on the HOTAS. I mean, do you really need it for dropping your gear? Just take your left hand off, hit the N key, and put your left hand back on, and press off of that. So prioritize what keys you're going to be using there. Memorize those first, and we'll let the lesser ones, the non-combat ones, go to the secondary stage later on in life.
Yep. I think largely when we get down to it that a HOTAS with some type of touchscreen mounted near your throttle quadrant is going to be the optimal thing for 90% of this. Because there's a lot of stuff like switching to mining mode or switching to scanning mode and things like that that you probably don't need for a lot of pilots. Some fighter pilots maybe, but for a lot of pilots they don't need on their HOTAS. They just really need the ability to control flight surfaces, lock targets, and, fire missiles and make the guns go boom.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I mean, I really could probably benefit from just an 8-button box that I could just push a button to do some things without having to also look down at my keyboard and pick the button that I need to push. If it's really close to my my throttle, I could just reach over by muscle memory and click the button that I need to click. Sort of like a Twitch deck or whatever you call those things that have
Stream Deck.
Stream
Deck
Deck,
would
yeah,
work.
something like that you can even put the icons in if you wanted to to go fancy like that. And
You should talk to
such.
me. We've got something that I can show you that we have.
Yeah,
Wink,
so
wink, nod, nod.
because
that we've been working on.
I'm more along the lines of Namidius. I don't I fly big ships, I cargo exploration. I don't do a lot of mining, but I have been doing a little bit more combat lately because right now that's where the focus is, and some of the game loops that they're trying to test within the latest build. But again, for me, as long as I can roll, pitch, and lock and fire, then you're pretty much done what Turin's able to do. So you've flown with me, Jay. I can fly the ship pretty well, but
You fly the ship excellently.
but I'm not so sure that I could really get in there and do what you need to do from a a fighter wing standpoint. But willing to learn.
Well, I think I'd like to
Tariff-
end on this. Mushroom Tiger says, with the profiles available, the HOTAS is much more appealing to a lot more people. That was the whole goal. Yeah, I mean, I did it for myself. There's no question, but I did the T16,000 as because it was something I could control a little bit more. And I'm used to the software, but that was my hope, was that more people could see and get through with it. Unfortunately, Star Citizen has things so goofy that if you plug in a joystick right now, jump in game and you bind the axes, you push the throttle forward, you're actually going to go backwards. And so it's not set up to be friendly right now for HOTAS for a lot of people, and it's a pain. I mean, my install videos are 8 and 10 minutes long, and that's just the video. It's going to probably actually take you a little bit longer to go through all those steps. So my hope is just simply that people will enjoy them, learn from them, and give some feedback, and maybe we can get Star Citizen to make them a little bit easier to install.
Yep. Terrafon brought up Game Glass. I strongly discourage the use of Game Glass. There should be no reason that your software wants to communicate with a third-party server constantly between with your setup. I would strongly urge you not to use. Oh, Terrafon, it definitely does. Let me tell you, we've packet sniffed it. It's definitely talking to a third-party server all the time, constantly.
Cole brought up voice attack, and I've used voice attack in Elite Dangerous, and it's got a lot of uses there. I haven't used it for Star Citizen only because with our involvement in operations, when you're using your own communication system, talking to your your fellow org mates and op mates, I find it I could probably make a mistake and start talking in voice. It's sort of like having a a Siri or an Alexa, it's going to start working for you, you like it or not. I'd push the wrong button. So, and I apologize to all the Alexas out there that just went off and said but I think voice attack does have its use, but I also think it can be a crutch if you need to learn the systems, and I'm sure most people do who use it. They just like the immersion with it, and something talking back to you when you're playing by yourself. Which Elite you can do more solo than you really do in Star Citizen. Star Citizen's designed as a group team play game, really.
Yep. Well, and I think the thing to keep in mind here is that voice commands are always going to be slower than keyboard presses or tablet presses or something of that nature. So I mean, I would go with a tablet solution or a Stream Deck solution before I would go with a voice attack. And I can't tell you the number of times when we were flying F-16s in BMS that it seemed like every last person that tried voice attack at some point would rip their landing gear off because they would come down at inopportune moments and overspeed and damage the bird. So, yeah, I don't recommend voice attack. It's slow compared to button presses. So, okay, moving on. I think we beat that one to death. Jolly, talk to us about refining, which is new in 3.12.
Yeah, that was a big jump in terms of features. In Star Citizen was 3.12 was refining itself. It was obvious to me that CI adjusted the game, the payouts, to force us to do more refining, which is fine. We're here as primary testers anyways in this alpha game, so I had no problems with that. So I spent a lot of time refining. That's what I was looking for. I will point out that there are limited locations you go to. All the L1s and plus her L2, or we get refining done. Hopefully the game that'll change in the future. It's important to know that each one has a little bit different payoff on it. And to be honest, one of the things I used to look at is I'd find a load of gold on a rock and I'd ignore it because it's too low to pay off. However, if I pick up gold and I go to her L1, that pretty limited payoff could really blossom to one heck of a payoff if I make sure I refine at the right location. You need to know not just where these refineries are at, but what they specialize in. And so I do recommend you take a look at that closely. It does mean sometimes if you have a mixed load, you may have to bounce around to different refineries to offload them to have have it run to make sure it gets refined. You have to then run around later on and pick up, which we'll talk about in a little bit for the next segment. But overall, that's one thing to consider. Also, I looked at the refinery's workload is going to affect your fee you're going to be paying itself. Some of these numbers are kind of ridiculous. 8,600% over. It sounds a little bit much for me. Maybe everybody's doing the refining at the same time, same location I am, but I would think that number may go down a little bit more in the future. I also hope the number of refining locations will also increase. They're not limited to just these HER stations or L1 stations that are around the current solar system. We talked about the stations already. There's refining methods. Can you bring that slide for me, please, Joni? Good, fast, good. Is it cheap, good, fast? Pick two. It kind of holds true with this also. You got to figure out what do you want to have done. To be honest, a lot of people are taking the bottom one, the solventation, because it pays off well. It's very slow though, but the cost is also low. And I don't mind dropping off 4 loads or 4 different orders to have a process and coming back in 24 hours, pick them up and then trade them from there. So it's worked out pretty well so far. If you're in a rush for money, okay, it's gonna be a different thing there. You want to have a fast job done on it. Realize you're not going to get much payoff on it, but if you're really in need of funds, you may want to adjust that yourself. But so far, I'm favoring the last one, Dinix solventation, more than anything else that's out there. And when I talk to other players, they're pretty much doing the same thing. They don't mind waiting the 22 to 24 hours to get a process done on the whole thing. So that's something to keep in mind when it goes to refining. Make sure you select what you want. You may have to shop around, get the best deals. You want to take advantage of really we look at the specialties that you get the full advantage of what that refinery can pay you back, and load up your cargo and then take it from there.
Charlie, I got a question for you.
Shoot.
So I haven't done any mining or refining. I did go see the refineries and I thought it was beautiful with the big cauldrons of fire, and they got the decks up above so you can look down. If you haven't seen that, I'd recommend going in and checking it out. But again, I don't mind waiting unless I'm hurting for cash. So the real question is, versus just going into a trade terminal and selling it off my ship, how much extra time does it actually take just going into the refining section, setting up to refine, and then just letting the clock run out? Like how much time is invested for you, not the wait time, but the action time, more
The
than maybe
action
a
time
regular.
is actually minor. Not a big deal. Let's take you go to Daymar, you do some mining over there. You can't anymore, but you used to be able to run to PO, sell your ore there. That's fairly fast. Well, getting out to Crew L1 isn't that much longer to get over there either. So it wasn't a big deal. And Noah pointed out that the payoff for refined materials versus raw materials is considerable, but you still have the option to sell the raw. There's no problems. You can do that. The game still allows you to do that. Can't do it at PO anymore, but you do it at other locations just fine.
I think that's an interesting concept. You spend a little bit extra time, then you let some clock time run that doesn't really affect you because you can go start mining again and you make some more money. To me, it sounds like that's a no-brainer.
What I found most people will do is if prospect or mold doesn't matter, you make a load, you go up, gather up, drop off, get a work order going, do it again, get 4 work orders in there, and then come back 24 hours later, pick them all up. They'll all fit into a max. Sometimes even just a basic freelancer, take them off and sell them.
And I'm assuming a 30K crash while this is happening doesn't matter because just like your ship on a recovery time, it's a process that's internal. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, once you drop off, 30Ks are still a problem no matter what. You got a miner filled with junk. You're 30K out without resetting your point, you lose it all. But once you drop it off for the refinery, start working on it, 30K doesn't matter at all.
Once the process is started, then 30K, you're safe. Yeah.
So there's
Now
no
there
additional
is
risk.
LTP resets when they do a persistence reset. I have seen people all the processes go away, just
Yeah,
like
true.
stored cargo goes away.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
last patch,
that
that's
can
what
happen.
happened. Last patch that did. I had a couple
Now
more
for
codes going.
Now for refinery, Jolly, if you're refining, you have to have a cargo ship in order to
Yes, when it's
realize
all
your
said and
benefits.
done, you've got right now when the game, the state it's in, I've got this refined cargo over here. I've got to have a ship capable of carrying cargo to bring it to a trading point. I can then sell it. Hopefully in the future, I can have my materials over there that are refined. I could then somehow pass them over to a third party, have them make the transport. Right now, the game can't do that.
Do you have to have the cargo ship at the refinery facility when
Yes.
you set the process up to start, or only when it's done?
It has to be spawnable there when you're ready to. After
Right.
the job is done, you have to before you leave with it. You have to pick a ship to put it on. So the
Okay,
ship
so
has to be spawnable there.
You don't pick the ship when you set the refinery job up. Only
Afterwards.
only when you get ready
Once
to
it's done. Yeah.
collect the refined materials, then you have to tell it what ship to put on, and that ship
the
must be
ship
spawnable
has
at
to
that location.
be either there or stored, which means it can be brought up. And we have found, for example, if you bring in a ship, let's say bring a Max in, you land it, it's not stored. You try to put materials on that. I think it's a bug, but a lot of times you can't put the materials on there. If you store that ship, you can then put them on.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that would
right.
just
I've
be
seen that.
you land and you're coming into the station anyway to go to the refinery. Just stop off at the ASOP terminal, hit the store button, and it should
Yeah.
store your ship and then head
Example,
on down to the refinery.
I had a bunch of orders going. They're all done. I brought a Max in. I landed it at Crew L1, I think it was. I go inside. I try to load it onto the ship. I couldn't do it. Went back out to the kiosk, stored the ship, went back in. Then I could go ahead and load it onto
Okay.
that Max and
All
take
right.
it up to where I want to go. Like I said, I think it's a bug. I think that'll be worked out.
But since you can now, do you also have the ability to rent ships at the refinery stations, or you have to go to the cargo decks, which aren't at the refinery stations?
There's
I
a
don't
rental
think
terminal, isn't there?
I don't know about
Is there a rental terminal at the
don't know the
refinery?
ship rental. I don't know if anyone there, if somebody else does speak up, but
I think they're only at cargo decks on
That's right.
stations. So
They changed what was available at the cargo decks. I think that was the deal. Yeah.
well, not every refinery station has a cargo deck. I don't think they're. I don't think the cargo decks are located. I think they're only
Only at the
located
orbitals.
on the orbitals around the planet. It's only at Microtech, Hurston, and ArcCorp. So if you're looking to rent a ship, and I guess also the ship rentals down at the actual spaceports on spaceports planet side. So you'd have to rent the ship first, fly it out, just like you would a regular ship, unless you can spawn it
Store
already
it,
there.
then load it and
Store
fly
it.
away.
Yeah, yeah. And it's almost a 2-to-1, almost a, was it 100% increase
Exactly
for
2 to 1.
refinery versus non-refinery?
Yep.
Doubled.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, there's a lot of advantages to being able to set your refinery job and log off for the night and come back
Yeah,
tomorrow and
there
pick it
is.
up. I mean, it's
Last thing to do of your gaming day is get those orders going. And like I said, I don't mind waiting the 24 hours. But if you're in a rush, by all means, try something different. See if that's what you like better. Do be selective where you want to go to have the stuff refined. I said gold actually can pay off if you go to, it was her L1, Fitch station was one of them. It's a 10 times, a plus 10 ratio on it. So it's a big plus on that one.
10%.
10%.
Yeah.
As opposed to -4% or -6%.
Yeah. Do you think, Jolly, that once this expands out and they have more than one system that they're in right now, it'll begin to settle down as far as the disparity amongst because right now you may have a load that you're mining from, say, Daymar. You may have to go to 3 different refineries in order to get the maximum ability out of all that, and that seems like a lot of work. And now
That's a
now
true
you start
statement.
talking about what Josh is talking about. How much time does it take for me to go around and drop off all my stuff at all these different refineries?
It's not there anymore, but it was for a while when the patch first came out. At Crew L1, you go to the asteroid field right outside of it. It was filled with borates. And so I would specifically just look for rocks with borates. So I'm favoring one type of ore on my ship, on my prospector. I bring back and I'd work on that one being refined. If I had junk on board, I'd go to the regular ore cell, get my pennies. Don't really care. I just want to get off my ship and get the important stuff there going on a refining order. They go back out and repeat the process.
Yeah, if you were looking at it from a go ahead, Nam. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Just one other thing to add there, though. It's an all or nothing thing there. So if you got a mix of materials, you can't just refine something, sell off the rest of it. Whatever you don't choose for the refining job is dumped as if it was inert material.
Oh,
are you
seriously?
sure about that?
Yes.
I've sold stuff at the left, the little raw ore, and then I walk over and do my order.
You aren't able to at the raw ore. You're not able to select just one or the other. You have to sell the whole load or none of it.
No, I've been able to select
Not for the raw
individual.
ore. You used to be able to sell individual raw ore.
I didn't see an option for selecting them.
On the left-hand side, you gotta select that specific metal or whatever.
Well, actually,
no, you're thinking about selling. No, it's
commodities. You're thinking about selling commodities. Yeah, when you used to went to when you're going to PO and turning in your prospector, it was an all or nothing. When you push the button, it tallied everything that was on board the
terminals at the left are all or nothing. You sell it all raw, or you go to the refining terminal. You might have 6 different materials in there, and if you choose one, if you toggle the one right and you commit to that process, the rest of it's lost as if it was inert material.
It dumps it? Oh,
yes.
Oh, wow. That's not cool.
I'll check that again. I'm not sure about that.
It's a mix.
So if let's say, for example, if I had gold and I had aluminum, let's just pick, things because, the other ones I don't remember off the top of my head. And I decide to go to the station that has gold as the better process. If I just choose gold, then, I start the job, I get back, I respawn my prospector back back out.
It's empty.
It's empty.
Wow. It'll be empty. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's not been refined, sorted. It's just a mix. So I guess that's a game. I don't think it's a bug. I think it's intentional.
Well, that makes it really, really difficult because each station, then I think from a business standpoint, if we were going for, what was happening in the real world, you would locate refineries next to systems that are, and they would focus on materials that would be able to be refined from that system. Because we all know that the things you can get at Daymar are not necessarily the things you can get at at Lyria, and not the same things you can get over at Microtech's moons. There's a mix.
That's a
So
possibility because Walla, the moon around ArcCorp, actually has a fairly high incidence of terranite, and Arc L1 does have a bonus for terranite.
yeah, so I would think if you were looking at it from that standpoint, what they're saying is that they're focusing on, from a business standpoint, the stuff that is inherently in that local system, in that planetary system, and that's what their refinery is going to focus on.
That would be the hope. That's the look of it. But I can.
But right now, I know
tell
they're
you from
testing.
practice. I can tell you from practice, I've done that where I've selected just one or two that I consider worth the time and trouble, and left like aluminum and some other things that don't have much value, and they disappear if you don't refine them along with the rest of it.
So you're better off picking the refinery that gives you the bonus for the best payout, and then just pushing refine for all the stuff in your in your load, because you're going to make some bucks anyway. Because if you dump it to garbage, you're not getting anything.
Well, actually, I go into that just a little bit. Do we want to play that video now?
Unrefined versus refined prices.
Jacqueline?
Oh, we're not there yet. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, no,
we can.
we're about there. It's good.
Okay.
It's a good segue.
Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of, unrefined selling versus refining. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hit that full screen.
So yeah, it's like Josh was talking about. The refinery is awesome. Okay. The refinery is awesome, and you definitely
this
need
is
to
it.
check this place out. But
You
I
bring the
wish the
screen up?
elevators was over by the stores.
Yeah.
Or the stores were over by the
Can
elevator.
you bring the
Yeah.
video up, Joni?
It's up. It is.
Yeah.
It's
That's
running
it.
right
There
now.
you
I
go.
can see it.
It's running. Okay. So upstairs in here, and then you got the choice. On the left, there's the old terminals we're familiar with, where you sell unrefined. Well, before we got it at full value. And here, this is what you got, and you have to choose. You basically, it's good to I always check this anyway, even when I know I'm going to be refining, just to see what its unrefined value. That lets me know what the 50% value of the overall load is once it's refined. And you're never going to get 100% of it because there's always going to be some loss on a refining job. So, let's see. Okay. So top left there is where you see the mining specialty, the specializations, plus and minus percent values. And here you have to select your different processes. And I did a lot of math here as far as flipping through the different options, figuring out what was the drop off. The one interesting thing to know is that there's a flat percentage for each process where the yield loss is, and then that percentage is taken off what you've gotten out of that. So something might get dropped down to 66%. A minus 4% would come off the 66%, not the 100%. Okay, Joni, if you could just pause it there. Now, this is pretty much what I've found. You have the different yield bonuses or negatives at different stations, but these seem to be pretty consistent. On the left there, I'll list the unrefined. That's basically, I'm saying 50% because, and there's zero time and zero cost involved in doing that. Cormac, which a lot of people say they're in a hurry, they say they choose Cormac, and the thing is you lose a third of it right off the top by choosing that due to the yield loss. And if that mineral has a negative penalty at that station, it's going to take even more off of that. Then you got to go to the trouble of loading it on a ship, taking it to a planet side, and then there may be market fluctuations where especially if it's like something like laranite that gets traded a lot, the market could be really down on that, and you've lost more. For the time and trouble, generally, my opinion is you either sell unrefined if you're in a real hurry and you need the cash, or you just set the one at the far right there. Now, I did a lot of comparisons between different minerals on different jobs, and these multipliers are pretty consistent. If a if a Cormac takes an hour, a Cormac job takes an hour, it's going to take a half hour. Sorry, it takes an hour at that. It's going to take 48. What is it? No, a Cormac job, I've never seen it hit an hour. I apologize. But say it's
30
a half
minutes.
hour, it's going to take like a day on the Denix solventation. But I've never seen a prospector job take over an hour and 20 hours and a day. You have any questions on this one, Jolly?
No, I've had 22-hour mission, 23-hour work orders, but like I said,
Yeah.
it's all bull race and stuff like that. But no,
Right.
that actually explains it pretty well right there.
Yeah, and thing is, if you're a little bit, you just gotta go through the different choices as far as and seeing what time it's giving you, and just make a judgment call on it. There's never 100% saying that you should always do this or you should always do that one. It's a trade-off in time and risk. But like I said, I almost always I either sell unrefined or I do Denix. That's pretty much where I am.
Thing.
It's just, but the risk is, you could be waiting a day and a half before you can load your ship up, and a server, there could be a reset. We were looking at the PTU maybe dropping to live not too long in the near future here, just depending on what happens. So
And I would
that's
think
the risk you take.
And I would think now, how many unrefined runs could you go and sell in that time period while you're waiting for the other job to do?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
the thing.
that's the trade-off. I mean, you could drop one load on that, so you're guaranteed a double payout sometime in the future. But in the meantime, if I'm looking to run, you can run a lot of prospector loads in 4 or 5 hours if that's what
That's
you've
the
got to
trade-off.
run.
If you have a time, you don't really have a cargo ship worth speaking of. That's the big trade-off. You got to have in my opinion, you really got to have a ship that, like he's talking about, the Max or something like that, that makes it worth making that run. If you're having to do if your cargo ship is like I don't know if I would do this if I only had a Cutlass to run the cargo, because that's only 46 SCU to begin with. I've been doing it with a MSR, and that holds 114, and I might get, depending on how full my prospector is, there might be 4 to 6 prospector loads worth of refining in that MSR. So it's a matter of economizing your time. But like I said, if I had to make a cargo run every couple of prospector runs, I'd probably be doing what you're talking about, which is just doing back and forth, selling raw ore. I wouldn't bother with the refining process. You got to have a cargo ship that can hold a decent amount to make this worthwhile.
I agree with that, but you don't have to have I mean, I had a 29 SKU of Grecium, which we know is a high value item, and so at 29, I could easily fit that in a black. So and paid off was 53,000, which is minuscule compared to the 100,000s you can make out of other things. But don't be discouraged if you only have a Cutlass or a smaller ship. You may still be able to get away with some of it. Don't try to overload it though.
Right, and
Yeah.
and it also, it's a matter of, like you said, you're dealing with stuff at the higher end there.
Yeah.
We also have you had the chart. There was also another one in this section, had to do with the different values, unrefined versus refined prices.
Yes,
It's just
segment 4, unrefined versus refined.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, and it's a matter of making the most of your time. I mean, if you're dealing with stuff in that green zone at the top, yes, it's worth making those trips. But if you're really arguing over pennies, if you're dealing with stuff down at the bottom there, if you've already had a fair amount of loss due to yields, due to refining it, and then you're having to take it to market, you're not for your time spent. You might even make better money doing a couple of bounty runs.
Yeah, it kind of looks like something that you would want to set out to do at the beginning. Do your prospector, get 3 to 4 loads that you're going to put in the refinery, set your refining runs, and then go use your prospector to do some unrefined runs as well. Try to bounce back and forth, because then the next day I'm going to come back, I'm going to grab my refined loads, put them in my cargo ship, go and sell that, and then wash, rinse, repeat again. It's almost like something you try to set up as the last thing you do for your day, set it to run overnight, so to speak.
That's
What-
what I usually do. Jolly.
One thing I have to keep in mind is, remember, this is testing still. We don't know if that 2-to-1 ratio is going to hold true when we hit live.
I
Have
would
to
say
wait
it's
and
probably
see.
going to be better. I would hope that it would be better if you're going through
For
a
the amount of
refining
time we spend.
process for the amount of time that it costs. Yeah.
But if we have the
Yeah.
ability to sell that refined material to a third party,
You know-
maybe it won't be.
And Jolly, either that or the refining time is going to come down, because can you imagine being on an Orion and you've got a refinery built on board and you're starting to mine, but what you've got, it's going to take another day or so before the dudes in the back get it all refined for you so you can take it in. And I don't know if that's going to work too well. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I think the argument's going to be there that since it's your refinery in the back, that it goes instantaneously or near instantaneously.
Yeah, you own the entire refinery.
Well, you own it, but the refining time is tied to the process. So unless they come out with, the Orion refining process, or something like that, then,
Yeah, they will.
that's the time.
We'll have to
You're
wait and
right,
see.
but I would also say, you know how we show up at a refinery and I'm at 8,600% load right now, and means your work order is way back here, off to the right before we get to it. When it's your own ship, hey, it's front of the line. Who knows?
Okay, so the amount of time is based in part on the refining process, but also on the load at the refinery for
Yes.
the amount of.
Yes.
Yes.
I got you.
There's
Okay.
I can
It's
tell you how
right
this
now, it's
goes.
The fee. The fee
Yeah,
is the load.
there's a flat fee that is applied. I did once again. I'm comparing the math on this. It doesn't matter whether you're doing 1 SCU or 32 SCU worth, or if it's one unit. There's a flat fee that is applied to the total job. It doesn't matter whether you choose 2, 3, all the minerals. And then on top of that, they take a percentage of the value of what you gained from the process.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about what it costs you to do it. I'm talking about the time it takes for you to run your job. What is that an equation of? The refining method, the refining method, and the amount of work orders ahead of you. Is that what it is?
What they've stated is the load on the refinery affects the fee.
Yeah,
That-
okay, so
they
it
have
doesn't
said
affect
that.
the time.
Well,
Okay.
we don't know. They
Okay.
haven't stated that.
I tried to crunch the numbers to make some sense out of it. I would have 2 loads that were virtually identical at a station on different days, and the time at the Cormac would range from 13 minutes to 20 minutes. Now,
Same
the
material,
multipliers-
same amount.
Yes, and that chart, those multipliers still hold, but the number that's being multiplied seems to be highly variable. But at the same time, I've never seen a full prospector load take more than a day and 20 hours, no matter what.
Well, somebody said that they had a full prospector 32 SKU of usable material, and it took us 42 hours.
On the Dynex method, I would think that the equation would be a combination of the refining process, the amount of material you're going to refine, and how many refining jobs are ahead of you to determine how long it's going to take for your
Yeah.
material to go from beginning to end and put it in the cargo ship.
Whatever
I would
formula they're
think so,
using,
too.
I'm not entirely sure what it is, but yeah, the best thing you can do is just see what it is at that particular time. But I've seen it to be highly variable.
But it
I'll
will
just
give
point
you a
out that-
time. It will give you a time when you go in to try to do your job. It will tell you when it's done.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Just-
it will tell you when you go to, you say what is it? Quote, you hit the quote button. It'll tell you how much it will cost and what's the expected time to complete. And
Okay.
anytime you go back to the terminal, it'll tell you how long a job has left.
Yeah.
And when the job finishes or when you've logged in and it's already done, you'll get a little notice top center of the screen telling you a job is ready.
Okay.
And
Cobra had a question. No, is it the based on the time refining time is based on SKU or material mined? Does the material mine matter? I don't know. I don't think the material mine matters, but have you found?
I don't think it does. I've had a full load of laranite and a full load of quantanium take the same amount of time.
Okay.
Yeah, not entirely sure on that one.
Wow. Master Chief Mike says it 3 days for 96
Mhm.
SCU.
It is
on the
proportional to-
Holy
it does-
mackerel.
It is somewhat proportional to the amount you're doing.
You
Yes.
better not be living hand to mouth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine how long that Orion will take.
Well, that's why the refinery's on board. I think. That's why the
Hopefully,
refinery-
yeah. Hopefully. And,
Yeah.
yep.
Oh yeah, the
Okay.
work orders, number of work orders. Has anybody ever heard of an actual limit? Because I've had 11 going.
I've
I have
heard
no
4.
idea huh?
I was told 4 initially. This is way back when it first started.
They maybe initially, but last time I did it, it was like 11 I had in one refinery.
Wow.
Yep.
Crack says 12 is his max. Cobra, did that answer your question? Hopefully. So okay. So I think that covers mining and refining pretty good. So let's move on to segment number 5. We're going to actually get to the segment and hopefully be able to finish it off.
It should take long.
It shouldn't. So Jolly, this is going to be you, and we're talking about the non-pirate Idris mission.
Non-pirate Idris mission. We had a chance to be on 2 of them, involved too far to blow them up. I'll be honest, the hardest part of that mission, in my opinion, is not blowing up the Idris, it's getting to the Idris mission. In order to obtain the legal one, this is the one where you're not going to get a crime stat on, you do all the missions from Miles Eckhart, but to reach Miles Eckhart, you need to work your way through North Rock bounties to get his attention. So if you're working with a group of people, an organization with the case would be, excuse me, some of you should have worked your way up the bounties, try to glom onto that individual or a party at that point in time in order to take down the Idris itself. One of the hassles is there's one Idris per server. So if we got a group of us, we go into a server, somebody's ready to do the Idris mission. If some other organization's in there and they're doing that mission or they've done that mission, SOL. We got to go to a new server to find one that's empty. The Idris hasn't been taken by anybody at that point in time. If there's no Idris, you can get hammerhead missions, which pay off pretty well, but you don't get the joy of blowing up an Idris that comes into play. Best ships to use, hey, it's your call, whatever you think you're going to get away with. What I've found so far, what I've seen others so far, works well. Harbingers and Retaliators. They seem to do the best job itself. There's other options. You can bring fighters with you. The Eclipse, I brought an Eclipse out to the very first one I tried. I offloaded all 3 of my size 9s. Pretty much useless. Went reloaded again at the cost of $22K. Came back out, offloaded another 3 size 9s or 10K for reload. So and my payoff was 20K. So works out in the end, I guess. But we found is the Idris does a really good job of its defenses. And if we set back the first time, we all fired off our 9s at a distance, and they all went in there, and they're pretty much defeated by the Idris's defenses. Whether it be maneuvering, decoys, but the guns itself on the Idris would take them out, take out the torpedoes itself. So you have to overwhelm its defenses itself. You can do that with missiles, smaller missiles, fire off 2s and 3s, or you can do it with fighters if you want to, as long as you got guys brave enough to go ahead and jump up against the Idris itself and have fun with it. It's nice having the Harbinger with the finish off weapon of the sizable weapon in order to finish the whole thing off once it's pretty much dead in the water. Don't get too close to it when it blows up within 500 meters or so. You may be taken out with the blast or the whole thing that happens. And personal opinion, I think they're lulling us into a little bit of confidence. I hope that Idris is not that easy to take out. If you had, you bring in 6 Retaliators, 3 more Harbingers, you're going to take it down. You're not going to have a problem taking. You may take a loss here or there, but you're going to take that puppy down. And I'm kind of hoping the Idris is going to be beefed up a little bit more than that.
Are those
And this is also
Harbingers
AI. This is all
stock?
AI Idris. That's something to
And
keep
no
in mind.
armor. And no armor right now.
Yep, it's not. It's a stock Idris. Nothing is special on it. So,
Yeah.
I think in live it's going to be a little more difficult than what it is right now. I hope it is. Have you else had a chance to blow up the Idris?
I have.
not.
Yeah.
I did. I was with a couple people who did it.
Been blown up
And,
by an Idris.
I actually took a 600i in there with some other people, and because I was the biggest ship, it just decided I was the target to home in on. So it kept trying to bear the spinal weapon on me. So that was fun.
The real
I know
good's
of a-
big
I know
fun.
of a guy that got
circles.
his Retaliator taken out by the railgun pretty quickly. Because
That's a one shot, one kill.
it does a target prioritization nom, like what you're saying. It finds out that you're the biggest target. It's going to bring that. It's going to try to bring that that railgun to bear on you.
You see this shot go by you.
Yeah,
That's like bigger than your ship.
Yep.
You know.
Definitely some pucker factor there, Nom.
Yeah, one of the folks are saying 8 size 9 torps take it out. Default ship. Okay, that's believable. Got to get the 8 to hit though. That's one thing to keep in mind. You got to get the 8 to hit. So overwhelms defenses and hit it with those torps. And that's why the Retaliator is so great against that Idris.
Because it's
Isn't it-
6
Yeah,
size
it's
It
nine.
has
six of them,
six,
yeah.
6 size 9s on it.
Yeah, if you want to throw some eclipses in there to throw some additional torps, sounds good. I
Sounds
enjoyed the
like-
eclipse because I was like, hey, you suckers go up there and get real close and face all the threat. I'll sit back here and pop off 1, 2, 3, reload, come back, pop off 1, 2, 3. A little bit easier on me.
It sounds like a couple of freelancer miss tossing lots of little missiles at it to keep
Keep the defenses busy. Yep.
Yep.
That
And
would
then
not
just
hurt.
have retaliators and harbingers.
Yeah, or either that, or
the
a
kill.
squadron of M50s or something like that to fly around and keep the gunners tracked on you, but fast enough to where they can't track on you.
Anybody?
Yep.
Were they using gladiators in any of your fights?
None. But that
No.
doesn't mean they wouldn't work. Just we didn't use them.
Okay.
I don't know that they have size 9 torps.
They have size 5.
Five.
Same
They
as the
say it's
Harbinger.
five.
They have one size 5 torpedo more than the
And you,
Harbinger
and you
does.
can mount size 5s on a 600i, which is what I was doing. I was actually able to get some damage on it with them.
Okay. Well, guys, I think that's the show. I mean, that's an hour and a half ish, hour and 15 minutes, somewhere in that
15.
ballpark.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, he's talking about lulling into a false sense of what you call it, confidence.
Confidence.
The PTU apparently they got a javelin mission going on.
Eh,
Yep.
13 retaliators to bring it down to 50% health.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that sounds like javelins have a little bit more oomph to them.
Yep.
So I'm glad we have one of those. Or
Need the
a few
Perseus.
of them.
You're gonna need. You're gonna need the Polaris.
I'm waiting. Sitting in my hangar, waiting.
All right, next HangarReady should be 13 February, Jay, unless something changes.
Yep.
Friday
I
the
think that's what
13th.
we'll do. Saturday the 13th.
Saturday the 13th.
Close enough.
Close enough. I want to thank Deathstroker, Master Chief, Jihadi, and I think we had one more follow this evening. So that's 4
Mushroom
new
Tiger.
followers.
Mushroom
I'm
Tiger.
sorry, who?
Mushroom Tiger.
Mushroom Tiger. Yes. Thank you, all of you guys, for the follow. We've been having a pretty good night. Only have about 50 viewers on, but we're in the top 6, I believe, or top 7 on Twitch. So we're doing really good.
I think there might be some streamers that are streaming going after the javelin.
I believe you're correct. So that's probably not helping us any. Yeah, it looks like we're number
No.
8 right now.
Yeah, we were up to like 4 or 5 at one point.
Yep, but it happens. Thank you, Master Chief. So I think we answered all the questions along the way. Turn, did you see anybody asking questions that we didn't catch?
No, we caught all the questions, Jay.
Let me check Discord here. I told the guys I'd be.
I didn't see any in Discord. I was looking at that.
Yep, nothing in Discord. So, okay, so we'll be back on February the 13th, same time, late in the evening at 8 p.m. Central Time. And thank you very much for saying it's a good show there, Frack. I think we had a good show for being back after 2 months off. What do you think, Jolly?
Oh yeah, mustache crew back. I'm happy.
Good. Turing, any final words?
Nope. Good to be back.
Okay. Josh, how about you?
It's good to be back. I actually thought we were going to spend a lot more time on some of these topics. So I think we got the topics in a timely fashion. So I'm good with that.
I moved you guys along. Nom, any
Jason,
final thoughts?
Glad we're back into this. This is a lot of fun, and I'm gonna miss Delamar.
Yeah,
Levski.
that'll be the next episode.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah.
Tears for
Yeah,
Delamar.
Levski.
Tears for Delamar.
Tears
Yeah,
for Delamar.
next show we'll have champagne to toast Delamar's removal.
Hey, don't tempt me. I'll bring some.
I know you will.
I think I have a sinking suspicion that Pyro's coming really soon, and that's why they're taking it out.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Okay.
they need the server look. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Morrison's coming. Yeah.
That too. Okay, so we'll see you guys on February the 13th. Take it easy. Have a great month, and see you then.
See you guys.
Yeah.